And for more insight into the growing trend of age restrictions for social media, let's bring in Bruce Fine. He's a lawyer specializing in constitutional, international, civil rights, and government regulatory law. Bruce, you do it all. It's great to have you on the show. Thank you so much. So this is a real problem. It's a tragic story that we just heard about, and it happens all too often. So it is a problem that needs some sort of resolution. But how realistic are these types of restrictions on social media that Meta has just introduced? Isn't it fairly easy for kids to get around them if they wanted to?
Well, circumvention is easy, and I think the tragedies, and they are tragedies, did not inaugurate with social media. They happened before. And I think if we're to honor free speech and try to understand, we need to create a strong people who are able to resist temptation. It's the parent's role to discipline the child. The government isn't supposed to be the parent. And the parent has all the emotional power, the power of the purse, the love, and far more control over children than the government does by some regulations. To my mind, most social media is mind-numbing, and it's really the duty of the parents and the culture to stimulate children to do far more curious and exciting things than participating in social media. Now remember, no child is forced to go on social media. It's not compulsory. And the way in which you are able to avoid these tragedies is just to educate and encourage your child. Hey, do more positive things. Read books, write. You can attend drama. You can do music. You can run sports and various and sundry other things. The fact is that most social media does not stimulate and grow people. And that's the reason why children should be taught by their parents to resist. It can be done.
Yeah. The Australian government, we heard there wants to try and keep kids completely off social media, and it plans to conduct an age verification trial before introducing minimum age laws later this year. Talk us through how that would likely work.
Well, they'd have to have some mechanism by which persons would have to communicate in some way their age before they could have access to the social media. I don't know whether that means giving everyone, a number. And it would clearly create privacy issues that we know could be subject to abuse by government. The constant surveillance, the files kept on everybody, because now everybody's age is going to be known. Moreover, I think that it's doomed to be evaded because you could simply have two people, one proper age and one underage, at the same laptop, and one checks in or goes on to social media, and then the other jumps and piggybacks on the higher age that satisfies the Australian rule. So I don't think this is going to work. As pointed out, when you have an intense demand and the supply is there, the two are going to interact. And the government is rather futile. It's a little bit like thinking the government's war on drugs ends up ending use of cocaine and heroin and marijuana. It doesn't. It's a little pinprick overall.
Mm. And in your opinion, Bruce, are social media companies, the likes of Meta, YouTube, and ByteDance, the parent of TikTok, doing enough when it comes to implementing and enforcing these restrictions? As you say, there are so many ways around them. And should the onus be on them, or should it be more on the parents?
Well, I'm not somebody who wants to applaud businesses that are trying to exploit, if they were to test vulnerabilities of youth. But there are businesses, and their goal is to maximize profits. They don't have any social goal. Parents do. And parents have far more leverage over the children than the social media groups. And in my judgment, the disproportionate preoccupation with the social media organizations, as opposed to the parents, and say, stand up. Why aren't you encouraging and stimulating your children to do other things and go on social media? You can impose punishment if they go on, at whatever age they want. It doesn't have to be a minimum age. And that's what we have to shape up. The parents should be the ones in the business of child rearing, not social media.
And why haven't we seen other nations propose similar laws? Do you think that other countries, governments will follow suit? And do you think that tech companies do need to do more?
I think it depends. In the United States, we have a very robust First Amendment protection of freedom of speech, and our U.S. Supreme Court has spoken recently, in this earlier this year, that it's very, very difficult, consistent with freedom of speech, to have the government dictate, what kind of messaging and what kind of age restrictions ought to be placed on their audience. Again, I underscore, everybody using social media is doing so voluntarily. No one's coercing them to do anything. And I think that certainly in the United States, the likelihood of restrictions is likely to be very, very minimal because of the First Amendment and because our tradition is more focused on liberty and parental rights rather than on imposing regulations on social media. Now, are the social media companies, can they do more? Yes. I would like them to have some kind of standards other than maximizing profit that guides their business model. But that's really a triumph of hope over experience. People go into business for one reason, to make money. There are all sorts of other occupations you can enter if you're just wanting to do social good, join nonprofits, teach schools, engage in charity. That's not what you do if you're in a business. So I think it's not realistic to believe that these people trying to maximize profit are going to put the interests of children ahead of the dollar sign.